Hello everyone, I'm going to be making a very short video today. But in this video, I want to discuss some things that the Murder Sheet podcast has just talked about as of yesterday. They state that they have sources who claim that when Kegan Kline was in Indiana State Police custody in August, that a couple of things happened. Firstly, they claim their sources state that Kegan said that he was at the crime scene or nearby the crime scene waiting in a red Jeep, which apparently on Tony Kline's timeline, his timeline, other people's timelines, there is a red Jeep. Now, they make a great point when they say that one of the things we know about Kegan Kline, based on all the lies about his job history, about other things, is the fact that he likes to lie. So, on the surface, he's put himself at the crime scene if this information is true. Now, I ask myself this. If he really wasn't there, you could make up any lie possible. But if this information is true, why would you lie and make that lie putting yourself at the crime scene? That wouldn't be a smart thing to do, and it just wouldn't kind of fit his known behavior in the past. Again, I want to caution people because he could be lying. But I'm wondering, did what he told them lead to this search of the river? Because it sounds to me like he's given them some information, he's implicated someone else, whether it's his father, whether it's another person, we don't know. But here's the thing that I found very interesting. Now, remember, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before. I'm not only a journalist, but I also grew up on a military base for 16 years. So the Murder Sheet podcast has stated that sometime within, the days that they had Kegan Kline in custody, at some point, they transported him to the Grissom Air Reserve base in Peru, Indiana, which is 20 miles away from Kokomo. I'm sorry, the Grissom Air Base. Anyway, you get the picture. It's 20 miles away. Kokomo is 20 miles away from Peru. So, one of the first videos I ever made on here was entitled Delphi Murders, Kokomo, Indiana, Grissom Air Reserve Base Connection. That's February 17th, 2021. And it's interesting because in the beginning, it got a lot more views than some of my other videos have. And in the video, I theorized that Bridge Guy's voice sounded to me almost like somebody who was in the military or who had gone through boot camp, or somebody who was a drill instructor or something of that nature, because of like the raspy sound of his voice, like he was a smoker or a drinker or just something. It reminded me of friends that I had that came back from boot camp, and their voices had changed. They're just real raspy and authoritative. So I didn't accuse anybody in the military of this at this Air Reserve base, but I told investigators in my video, at the bare minimum, you really need to go and check out who was stationed at that Air Reserve base during the time of the murders and see if there's any sort of connection there, and, maybe there is. And to try and work with military authorities to get a list of names and people who were around there at the time, especially since reservists only work like one weekend a month. They come from different areas from around the country. And I've always wondered why they put up billboards in so many states if they were so certain that Bridge Guy was local. Anyhow, again, I know I'm jumping around here from point A to point B and things like that, but I guess when they transported Kline, according to the Murder Sheet, to this base, it wasn't just Indiana State Police. Supposedly, it was a whole bunch of different authorities. Probably FBI, probably the Sheriff's Department, Tobe Lesendy and them. And for all we know, at the very least, this shows me that the Indiana State Police have some sort of an understanding or agreement going on right now with the military and the military police. Because typically the way military law enforcement works is completely separate from civilian law enforcement, unless there's a real good reason for them to be working together. I mean, they could transport Kline just about anywhere they wanted to. So why transport him to the air base to have this conversation or these interviews? Now, you could just say, oh, they wanted more privacy, but they could get privacy anywhere they wanted. So, I don't know. The murder sheet really didn't delve too much into that or act like that was a big deal. But for all we know, it might be. Especially, like I said, since I grew up on a base and I understand the dynamics of how these things work. It's interesting because it shows me that Indiana State Police at bare minimum are communicating with the military authorities there as of recently, and that they had an agreement that they allowed Kline on their military base to conduct whatever business they needed to. Was that business related to something to do with somebody who had been stationed there or involved with that air base? It's entirely possible for all we know. Maybe that's why, Tony Kline isn't running around and panicking. Maybe it wasn't Tony, or maybe it was. But regardless, the bottom line, if you take nothing else from this video, is this. If you believe what the murder sheet sources are saying, Kegan Kline has put himself, by his own admission, at the scene of the crime. Whether or not that's a lie, I don't know, again. But I think that's pretty telling that you have court documents stating that he's trying to work out some sort of a deal with investigators. He shows up at the Air Force Base while he's in custody. Something's going on, and boy, is he just lying about there being somebody else involved to cover his own ass? I can't wait to find out, but these are some interesting developments, and I just thought I would share them with you all. Again, I still think that when all is said and done, we're going to find out, and this is just my opinion, we're going to find out that this person either has some sort of military background or some sort of law enforcement background or pretended to be military or law enforcement. Just an opinion I've had for a while here based on things that Tobe Lesenby has let slip about how the killer used deception at the scene of the crime, things like that, where I'm just kind of using some critical thinking and putting two and two together. So I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm wondering if, boy, what if Tony Kline is just smoke and mirrors for what investigators are really investigating? Just something to think about. Or again, it could be as simple as Kegan did it, or Kegan and his dad did it. You guys decide in the comments what you think. Again, I'm just sharing this information. Do with it what you will. But again, I find it really interesting. Of all places they could take him, they haul him 20-something miles away to an Air Force base, or an Air